Number 9. Hit-and-run driver strikes again. 3 TikTokers in Westminster, Colorado had their cameras rolling from different angles when they captured footage of the aftermath of a multi-car hit-and-run in April 2023. In the videos, a woman could be seen exiting from the driver's side of a silver car that had rammed into a pickup truck. She walked calmly from the scene until the driver of the pickup truck opened his door and began exiting the vehicle, at which point the woman picked up the pace and ran. One of the TikTokers, Natalie Sandoval, chased after the suspect and jokingly asked if she wanted a ride. The woman briefly turned around and said, "For real, let's go," only to quickly turn around and continue running away. A victim at the crime scene suffered a broken arm. The 21-year-old suspect was captured nearly 2 months later, thanks to a civilian who followed her in their car and informed police of her whereabouts. As it turned out, she had a warrant out for her arrest in connection with another crash that had occurred back in 2020. In addition to booking her on a second hit-and-run charge for the most recent incident, authorities cited her for numerous traffic violations. Number 8. Stanley Eric Mossberg. One evening in October 2019, 911 dispatchers in Polk County, Florida, received a call from a man who said an unknown suspect had barged into his home, killed his 2 roommates, and held him captive for 14 hours. The victim said he came home from work the previous night to find the suspect there. A male roommate had already been murdered, while a female roommate was tied up and still alive. She told the man to cooperate with the suspect to avoid getting hurt. The captor, later identified as a wanted fugitive from Greenville, Tennessee, named Stanley Eric Mossberg, tied the 3rd victim up in a separate room. Throughout the night, Mossberg filled luggage with all 3 victims' belongings. At one point, he killed the female victim and told the lone surviving resident about it. During the early afternoon, Mossberg told the man he would be back to deal with the dead bodies. He threatened to kill the man if he called the police and fled the scene in the female victim's car. The terrified survivor waited 5 hours before running to a neighbor who dialed 911. Police located the house where they believed Mossberg was hiding out and spent the night trying to negotiate with him using a PA system. They tried forcing Mossberg to surrender by filling the home with a chemical agent, but he refused and repeatedly shot at the team. Early the next morning, a SWAT armored vehicle drove into the garage where Mossberg was hiding under a pool table, and a K-9 apprehended him. In addition to the first-degree murder charge he was wanted on out of Tennessee, Mossberg was hit with 16 counts in Florida, including murder, attempted murder of a police officer, armed burglary with assault, resisting arrest with violence, and more. He remains behind bars in Florida amid numerous trial delays. Number 7. Lucifer Nguan. By the time police responded to a call about an armed home invasion in Mendota Heights, Minnesota one morning in 2017, the suspect had fled the scene. Later identified as 44-year-old Lucifer Nguan, the intruder robbed a homeowner at gunpoint and sped off in a white sedan. When an officer tried pulling the car over, Nguan initially appeared to cooperate, but he stepped on the gas and managed to elude capture. The car was later found in a pond, but Nguan was not in it. Shortly after finding the vehicle, police received a call about an armed gunman at a senior living facility located very close to the pond. It was in the same direction that a witness had reported seeing Nguan running in after he crashed the car. He had forced his way into the building at gunpoint and fatally shot 48-year-old Beverly Corey, and he fled the scene in her car before police could get to him. Later that morning, he knocked on a stranger's door and asked for a ride to a casino, and he also bought a cell phone at Walmart. Authorities finally captured Nguan shortly before midnight. He pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and 2 counts of aggravated robbery, and was sentenced to more than 45 years in prison, with a minimum of 30 years before becoming eligible for parole. Number 6. John Mcclusky. In July 2010, inmates Tracy Allen Province and John Mcclusky escaped from a state prison in Kingman, Arizona, with help from Mcclusky's girlfriend, Caslin May Welsh. A few days later, the trio allegedly carjacked Oklahoma couple Gary and Linda Haas at a rest stop along Interstate 40 in New Mexico. Mcclusky, who was serving a 43-year sentence for attempted murder at the time of the escape, fatally shot the couple. He and Province then drove to a remote area and set Gary and Linda's trailer on fire with their bodies inside. According to federal authorities, Mcclusky committed multiple other kidnappings during his time on the run. Police discovered the Haas's charred remains 5 days after the escape. 4 days later, they captured Province. Another 10 days after that, Mcclusky and Welsh were apprehended, bringing the nationwide 20-day manhunt to an end. Mcclusky had a lengthy criminal history spanning multiple states, which included prior convictions for at least 2 counts of aggravated assault with a firearm, 4 armed robberies, kidnapping, escape, and more. At the end of his 4-month trial for the multi-state crime spree following the 2010 escape, a federal judge found him guilty on all 20 counts listed in his indictment. He was sentenced to life in prison after the jury was unable to unanimously agree on whether or not to recommend the death penalty. Mcclusky died in prison in 2017 after serving just a handful of years for his most recent batch of crimes. He had been in poor health for several years leading up to his death, which was attributed to natural causes. Number 5. Christopher Prey. Described by police as an extremely dangerous felon, 39-year-old Christopher Prey bolted from a psychiatric hospital in Salem, Oregon, while fully shackled in August 2023. His handcuffs were attached to a belly chain, and his legs were also chained when he slipped out of the hospital unnoticed and sped off in a stolen minivan. A high-speed chase followed as state troopers tried to catch up with and disable the vehicle, but the police eventually decided to pull out of the pursuit for safety reasons. While considering the next move, the agency warned the public not to approach Prey and to dial 911 immediately in the event of a sighting. The fleeing fugitive has at least 16 felony convictions under his belt, including for robbery, resisting arrest, being a felon in possession of a weapon, and smuggling contraband into prison. At the time of his escape, Prey was being detained on multiple pending charges in connection with an incident that occurred in early 2022, including attempted aggravated murder, robbery, assault, and a gun charge. He's accused of nearly killing a woman during a robbery and attacking another woman with a tool during a domestic dispute. After being found incompetent to stand trial days before the escape, Prey was admitted to a state hospital where he got into an altercation with another patient. Following his escape, he was found stuck in mud up to his armpits in a pond. He allegedly gave police a false name, but was quickly identified by a hospital employee who recognized him and called law enforcement. Photos and videos showed fire personnel standing on a ladder and fishing Prey out of the pond using ropes. Authorities have not revealed exactly how Prey escaped custody, but have reassured the public that an investigation is underway. Number 4. Stuart Pinkham. 33-year-old Stuart Pinkham was wanted out of South Haven, Mississippi for carjacking, kidnapping, aggravated assault, and evading arrest when he allegedly went on a violent crime spree in Memphis, Tennessee in early 2023. According to police, he committed 2 shootings over a 2-day period in March, seriously wounding one victim and killing another. During the first incident, a woman claiming to be Pinkham's girlfriend was shot in the eye while sitting in her car and talking to a friend. She told police that Pinkham then yanked her out of the car and fled the scene of the vehicle. The next day, a witness called 911 and reported seeing a man shot in the chest outside a residence. As the victim ran toward the house, the shooter fired several more times. Multiple law enforcement agencies worked together to locate and apprehend Pinkham, including a U.S. Marshals Violent Fugitive Task Force. 2 days after the second shooting, the team tracked the fugitive to a local residence and surrounded the home. Thankfully, he surrendered without incident. In addition to the charges out of Mississippi, he now faces 1 count each of murder, attempted second-degree murder, and possession of a firearm with the intent to commit a felony. He faces 2 counts each of attempted first-degree murder, being a felon in possession of a firearm, aggravated assault, and use of a firearm in the commission of a felony. Number 3. Ernesto Alfredo Pinan de la Cruz. On New Year's Day 2023, 30 inmates violently escaped from a prison in Juarez, Mexico, near the United States border. The breakout was carried out with help from people on the outside, who stormed the prison with an armored vehicle and shot at guards. 10 officers, 7 inmates, and 2 attackers died in the ensuing chaos, while 13 others were injured. Among those who fled the prison was notorious Los Mexicles cartel leader Ernesto Alfredo Pinan de la Cruz. Better known by his street name name Ernesto, authorities considered him to be the leader of the breakout. He had been locked up for 12 years at the time of the escape. Pinan was first identified as a dangerous organized criminal in 2007 when he was just 18 years old. In 2010, he was sentenced to 224 years in prison for homicide and kidnapping. 3 days after the escape, Chihuahua State Police tracked the kingpin to a residence in the Los Aztecas neighborhood of Juarez. They attempted to take the gang leader into custody during the pre-dawn hours, but were shot at from inside the residence. Pinan fled the scene in a vehicle and drove to a nearby gas station where he crashed the car and continued to shoot at police. Officers returned fire, striking Pinan several times. Ernesto was critically injured, but police were worried that taking him to an emergency room would make the hospital a target for the Mcclusky. They opted instead to take him to a police station, and he died on the way there. Police seized an armored car, 8 rifles, and 5 bulletproof vests from the crime scene. But the chaos didn't end with Pinan's death. In retaliation for the loss of their leader, Mcclusky's members set fire to a convenience store and multiple vehicles. Number 2. Floyd Ray Cook. During what began as a normal traffic stop in Allgood, Tennessee in 2005, 62-year-old Floyd Ray Cook shot and wounded a police officer. Cook was a seasoned criminal. At the time of the traffic stop, he was wanted in Marion County, Kentucky for failing to register as an offender in connection with a past assault case. He was also wanted in Hardin County, Kentucky for trafficking methamphetamine and tampering with evidence. After shooting the officer in Allgood, Floyd fled in his pickup truck. He was spotted about an hour later just over the Kentucky border in rural Cumberland County. When a state trooper tried to pull him over, he attempted to speed off and wrecked his truck. Floyd fled on foot, sparking a major manhunt along the Kentucky-Tennessee border. Residents remained on edge as law enforcement searched high and low. Schools canceled classes for 3 days in a row, while entire communities waited for life to return to normal. A few days into the search, an investigator spotted a car Cook was thought to be traveling in outside a gas station in White House, Tennessee. When a marshal approached, the driver tried to flee, hitting 2 cop cars in the process and narrowly missing an officer on foot. Police fired at the car, which sped off down a street and through a fence. It crashed in a ravine, and the occupants ran off into a nearby cornfield. They were later identified as 2 of Cook's associates, but Cook himself was not in the car. A week into the manhunt, state troopers and a federal marshal encountered the fugitive while searching an embankment in Burkesville, Kentucky. Instead of cooperating, Cook shot at law enforcement and they returned fire. Cook was killed in the shootout, bringing his chaotic run from the law to a harrowing end. Number 1. Escaped prisoners die in car crash. In November 2020, 69 pre-trial detainees escaped a detention center in Babda, Lebanon, on the outskirts of Beirut. The mass jailbreak occurred despite tight security when inmates broke open their cell doors and attacked guards. During the large-scale manhunt that ensued, 5 inmates were killed when the stolen car they were fleeing in crashed. The driver lost control of the vehicle, which was traveling at a high speed, and the car struck a tree. One survivor was taken to the hospital with injuries. Speaking to the news outlet AFP, prosecutor Gada Aoun said that an investigation into the breakout was underway and that authorities had not ruled out the possibility of inmates colluding with guards. The escape reportedly came on the heels of riots inside overcrowded Lebanese jails over the dangers of the COVID-19 virus. Families of inmates had also expressed discontent by staging sit-in protests outside detention facilities. In addition to the 5 prisoners who died in the car crash, authorities recaptured 15 escapees and 4 turned themselves in. As of February 2021, the remaining 44 inmates were still at large. Thanks for watching. Would you rather live near a prison that seems to have a problem with inmates escaping, or near a garbage dump that you can smell from your house on a hot summer day? Let us know in the comments below, and remember to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.